Welcome back, Chapter 24, Charlie. I stripped off the dress and threw it on the bed. I can't do this, I said to the empty room. I wish Huck were pacing around my tiny apartment so I didn't feel like I was talking to myself. But he was downstairs in his crate in Harriet's guest room. I spent most of the day down there with him, the composition book, and a stack of library books. I had officially made zero progress. I started cycling through all the alphabets in the hopes that it was a basic substitution cipher, but it was a painstaking process. And while my cold cracking was going horribly, at least Huck was doing amazingly well. Dr. Rich hadn't lied about the plate in his leg easing his recovery. He might have looked a bit like a hobbling horse when he padded around with his weight unequally distributed, but I was so damn glad to see him on the mend. I glanced at the clock on my nightstand, 6:49. I paced my room, took a deep breath, and exhaled. Calm, I thought, you can do this. I can't do this. I flopped onto my bed beside the dress and stared out the skylight to the blue and white expanse above. My thoughts wandered back to this morning, lying on the bed, watching Simon as he stared me down with desire and something else. I never wanted anyone more, and I never deserved anyone less. Was I going to humor his simple, caveman-like request? What if he took me to some fancy Michelin star restaurant? With the impression I'd given him so far, Simon would probably think my nerves stemmed from not knowing which fork to use. Little did he know that if I was so inclined, I could out-etiquette him any day. The girl who used to dine regularly at Per Se might have been buried, but she was still in there, somewhere. But letting any hint of her out could put everything I built at risk. As it stood, my life might not be much, but it was mine. I looked over at the mini dress and fingered the deep purple cotton. I pictured myself wearing it, walking hand in hand through the streets with Simon. I wanted that. The rationalization started to filter in. We weren't in New York or LA. Simon wasn't a celebrity followed by paparazzi, and unless he was at a public event, it was unlikely that his presence would actually attract attention. I can do this. I adjusted my strapless bra and matching black lacy boy shorts and slipped on the dress. My hair hung in huge spiral curls I spent the last hour perfecting. Not that I would admit that little detail. I added dangling black and silver chain earrings that almost brushed my shoulders. They gave the outfit just enough Charlie flair to make it acceptable. I slipped on a pair of vintage red leather peep-toe platforms Ev had let me borrow out of the inventory at the Dirty Dog and fastened the straps around my ankles. A check in the mirror, another dab of red lip stain, and I was ready. Which was damn good timing on my part because the intercom, which I reconnected, buzzed. I crossed the room and pushed a button. I'll be right down. Can't wait, babe. Simon let out a woof whistle as I strolled, hips swinging, toward the gate. If I was going to wear this outfit, I was going to own it. Damn, woman. He slapped a hand over his chest. His white linen shirt was light and airy, and his slacks were much more casual than I anticipated. Step out here so I can see you. Simon moved away. As I walked out onto the sidewalk, I spun, giving it a little extra and the skirt of my dress flared. When I stopped my impromptu twirl, I couldn't hold back a ridiculous giggle as I smiled up at Simon. I expected to see his answering grin, but his expression was serious, almost solemn. I looked down at my dress. What? I asked, confused, the abrupt change in his mood. He shook his head and reached out a hand to trail a finger down my jawline. That right there. I want to put that smile on your face every day for as long as you'll let me. Ooh. I sucked in a breath and leaned into his touch. My first instinct was to make some smart-ass remark to diffuse the emotions bubbling up inside me. They were on the verge of spilling out into the cracked sidewalk at Simon's feet, But I held him down and focused on soaking up this moment. You better, girl. Don't be messing this up. I gift wrapped it and tucked it deep inside so I could take it out later and relive it. Relive it after I lost him. Don't think like that. Because reality was scraping away at the happiness I was just discovering. The more time I spent studying that damn composition book, the book of lies and ruin, the more I accepted the fact I'd never make it out of this unscathed. I was naive to think I could escape my past. Losing Simon would be my penance. And when that happened, memories of moments like this would be all I had left. I opened my eyes, determined to live in the now and not worry about the future, at least not for tonight. I pulled myself together and asked, so where to? You want me to answer that question when all I could think is, this woman is a goddess, and I can't believe I'm the luckiest bastard who gets to take her out. A smile tugged at the corner of my mouth. You're all charmed tonight, Mr. Duchessness. Honey, I'll be whatever you want me to be tonight. This time, I trailed my fingers down his freshly shaven cheek. How about just a guy showing his girl a good time? Ooh, she said his girl. Done. He offered his arm and I took it. The sun was settling and I was confused as hell. Simon waved to a guy at a security checkpoint and we cruised into a large lot surrounded by barbed wire fences. Hundreds or maybe thousands of shipping containers, gray, black, tan, red, orange, and blue, were stacked in rows and awaiting transport to their destinations. Where the hell are we? Patience. Simon drove until we reached a seawall holding back the mighty Mississippi and parked in front of a barge. It was secured to a wall with ropes thicker than my arms. Except for a small section toward one end, it was completely covered with shipping containers. I scanned the empty space for a table and chairs, candles, champagne on ice, the kind of setup that I expected a guy like Simon to pull together, especially after he ordered me to wear a short dress and high heels. But there was none of that. Simon climbed out the car and was opening my door before I could gather my wits to do it myself. He helped me out onto the asphalt. Wait here. He popped the tailgate and retrieved a blanket and a large soft-sided cooler. My scattered thoughts regrouped and I realized what he had planned. A picnic? Yup. Just you and me and the river. I was dumbstruck as he took my hand, led me over to the ramp and onto the barge. I grabbed a corner and we spread the thick stadium blanket out over the scarred and rusted steel of the deck. Simon helped me sit before kneeling on the blanket beside him. From the cooler, he produced round aluminum takeout containers with inset cardboard lids and a six-pack of Abita. I shook my head. He never did what I expected. Do you do this on purpose? He looked up from uncurling the aluminum edges of the container. Do what? The exact opposite of what I expect? He grinned and continued, revealing olives, 2 different kinds of hummus, flatbread, wedges of red and green pepper, slice of cold, rare tenderloin chunks of cheese, and grapes. What do you mean? This. I gestured to my dress and the shoes I've already unbuckled and tossed aside. You told me to wear a dress and heels. I expected a fancy restaurant or some trendy club, not a barge and a picnic and beer. His grin faded. Is that what you'd rather do? My eyes widened. No, not at all. This is perfect. But how did you know? I mean, hell, I don't know what I mean. His smile reappeared, dimples flashing. You don't give me much to go on, Charlie. I just have to guess. But I like surprising you. You get this look like you can't believe I go out of my way to do something special for you. I get the feeling you haven't had enough special in your life. And the dress? Well, I just wanted a chance to stare at those gorgeous legs of yours. he shrugged, as if to say, I'm a guy, deal with it. I reflected on his words for a moment. My life had been ruthlessly organized, everything handed to me before I could even think to ask for it. But that was just it. I hadn't asked for any of it. Not the designer clothes, or the writing lessons, or the schedule cluttered with suitable social engagements. I'd been given and had done whatever my parents had deemed appropriate for me. And I had to wonder if they had given those choices remotely as much thought as Simon had in planning his picnic. I reached for an olive and popped it into my mouth. How come some smart Southern belle hasn't snapped you up already? He smirked. I'm trying to get a sassy Yankee too, but she's not catching on as quickly as I hoped. I'm starting to wonder if she's not as smart as I thought. I threw an olive at his head and he caught it in his mouth. He popped the top off 2 beers and handed one to me. He held his out, the neck of the bottle angled toward me. To an unexpected night, he said. I clinked my bottle with his and nabbed a slice of tenderloin. I chewed and swallowed it. Holy crap, that's good. Where did all this come from? My kitchen. You know how to cook. I was glad I wasn't still chewing because I would have choked. Are you serious? You cook too? I say yes just to keep that look on your face, but it mostly be a lie. Okay. My parents' housekeeper is jetting off on a 2-week vacation tomorrow and asked if there was anything she could do for me before she left. I shamelessly begged her for help. He reached for a piece of flatbread and scooped up some hummus. I pressed a hand to my chest and made a poor attempt at a southern drawl. Well, thank you, the Lord. For that, I almost swooned. I took a swig of my beer as he finished chewing. Oh, you'll swoon, I have no doubt. After all, I am devastatingly charming. We lingered over the food and talked about everything and yet nothing of substance. Like where you come from and all about you. I love that he didn't push for more than I was willing to give, but I wonder if it would always be that way or if at some point he would lose his patience with me and demand answers. He might. But I didn't want to think about that right now, not on such a perfect night. We just popped the tops off the last 2 beers as fireworks burst over the river. I jumped at the thunderous percussions and Simon pulled me against him. I followed him down until we lay side by side on the blanket, staring up at the exploding blues and red and glittering whites against the cloud-covered night sky. This was one more thing I loved about New Orleans. You never knew when there'll be fireworks. The masses of partiers would pause a moment from downing their hurricanes and stare upward to enjoy the simple pleasure. Simon threaded his fingers through mine as vibrant colors continued to flare across the sky and the acrid scent of black powder hung in the air. He toyed with my fingers, bringing my hand to his lip to kiss each one. He moved onto my palm and nibbled the base with his teeth. I knew exactly how this picnic was going to end. Chapter 25, Simon. I started to sit up as Charlie rolled and threw her legs over my hips. She pinned me, hair blowing in the river breeze, and shoved me back down. Her face was cast in shadows, but I could still make out her determined expression. Nope. You're not going anywhere. I reached up and tucked a curl behind her ear. That's so. Yep. The words popped from her lips. You're going to pay up on all this teasing hand crap. I chuckled. I loved her no bullshit, straight to the point attitude. It was something that was lacking in all other aspects of my life. Teasing hand crap. Is that what that was? She shifted against me and her dress inched up her thighs. Call it whatever you want. The consequences are still the same. I raised an eyebrow. Do tell. I'd rather show. Even better. She reached down to the skirt of her dress and began pulling it upwards. I was riveted waiting for all that gorgeous skin to be uncovered when she paused. What's wrong? I looked around wondering if she spotted someone, but that wasn't the cause of her hesitation. Why do I feel like I'm always stripping my clothes off in front of you? I bit my lip to hold back a grin. I don't know, but you will never hear me complain about you getting naked for me. You didn't seem to have a hard time walking away from me that night in the pool. I distinctly recall being very, very naked. I cupped her chin, pulling her face down to mine. What you don't seem to get is that even then, I was playing the long game. I knew you were something special, and I wasn't going to take the chance that I only get a taste. I knew that once I did, I'd be addicted, that I'd have to have more. I needed you to be as off balance as I was. I kissed the corner of her mouth, and it worked. She shoved away from me. You're such a smug bastard. She drew her dress up over her head and let it flutter to the blanket beside us. Why don't you put your tongue to good use? My heart hammered as I took her in. Again, I wished for more light because I wanted to see her, memorize her. She was my addiction. I just hoped she wouldn't be lethal. Regardless, I was in too deep to pull back. She reached behind her back and unhooked her bra, letting it fall to my chest. She scooted toward my knees and undid my belt buckle and the button and the zipper of my slacks. When she shifted, I expected her to pull them off so I'd be as naked as she was, but she only tugged off her panties and resettled herself on top of me. She slipped her hand into my boxer brief and palmed my dick before pulling it free. Are you clean? Because I got tested. I'm good, and I'm protected. I skimmed my hands from her shoulders down her arms. I'm clean, but are you sure? We don't have to. She didn't wait for my response. She was already sliding the hot, wet heat of her pussy along my length and then lifted up and angled the head towards her entrance. My words died in my throat as she sank down on me, arching her back and thrusting her breasts outward. With nothing between us, the searing heat and tight clasp of her body sent spikes of sensation straight to my ball. Jesus, Charlie. I know. Her words were a breathy moan as she started to ride me. I cupped her ass in both hands, helping her to set a pace that was sure to demolish us both before we were ready. The clouds that had obscured the moon finally drifted away, and in the sliver light, I watched her take me with pure, unapologetic abandon. It was the sexiest thing I've ever seen in my life. Knowing that I wouldn't last nearly long enough to call myself a man, I trailed my hands around her waist and thumbed her clit. She moaned and pressed into me, seeking the pressure I offered. She cupped her breasts, tugging at her nipple rings as she flexed her hips and increased her frantic pace. Oh, that's not frantic. That's frenetic pace. I attempted to distract myself by promising that one of these days I'd have her on top of me and force her to go slow and savor the moment. It was a failure at a distraction. It just ramped me up more. Sparks zinged down my spine as my orgasm barreled down on me. Charlie threw her head back and moaned as her body clamped down on me over and over and over. Oh shit, I can't, I'm gonna. Her words were harsh whispers lost in the night. She slowed, unable to keep up her own rhythm as the climax gripped her. I clutched her hip with one hand and wrapped my arms around her back. I pulled her down to me, engulfed in Charlie, I finally let go. Chapter 26, Charlie. I laid atop Simon for what felt like hours, but what was in reality probably only minutes. I never wanted to move again. Clouds had covered the moon and I was focused on matching my breathing to Simon's. A spotlight cutting through the darkness interrupted our afterglow. Fuck, Simon whispered, throwing a corner of the blanket over me. Time to go? I asked, unfortunately. The unfortunate thing was the fact that I had to pull myself away from Simon's fabulous orgasm factory of a cock. Remembering that we've gone bare, I felt around for a napkin to clean up the mess. The bouncing spotlight was moving closer, so I hurried into my dress and grabbed my bra and panties. Simon tossed the remains of our picnic into the cooler and bundled up the blanket. I snagged my shoes, opting to leave them off. Let's go. He gripped my hand and started to lead me toward the ramp. He stopped abruptly. Shit. I don't want you walking on this barefoot. He dropped the blanket and the cooler on the deck of the barge and swept me into his arms. I clung to his neck as he carried me down the ramp and into the car. He just shut my door when the security guard reached us. I could hear muffling words but couldn't make them out. I really hope Simon was using that silver tongue to talk our way out of this. A cold sweat prickled over my body at the thought of possibly getting arrested. My fake ID wouldn't hold up long under heavy scrutiny. I squeezed my eyes shut. I'm not ready for this to end. I'm not ready to let him go. I took a few deep breaths to calm my hammering heart as another thought intruded. Will I ever be ready to let him go? It was a stupid question, and I knew the answer before I finished thinking it. But it didn't matter. I wouldn't have a choice. The light turned and headed away from the SUV as Simon opened the driver's side door. Sorry about that, babe. It was security. They changed shifts, and my guy forgot to mention it to his replacement. He must have noticed my pale face or my fingers clenching the fabric of my skirt because his forehead crinkled with lines of concern. You okay? I nodded, swallowing back my momentary panic, pasting a smile on my face. I tried to think of something casual to say. I ended up going with, and here I thought, you were finally breaking the rules. The lines of concern didn't leave his face, leading me to believe that my attempt at masking my freak out had failed. He didn't comment though, and for that I was thankful. I'm going to grab the rest of our stuff. Simon flicked on a flashlight I hadn't noticed, gesturing with it. He said, got it from the security guard. Apparently, he didn't want to be fishing me out of the river tonight. Be right back. Simon loaded the blanket and cooler into the back of the SUV, and we drove out what I assumed was the same way we entered. Silence stretched between us. I had no idea what he was thinking. I was too busy trying not to think at all. He reached over to pull my hand away from where it was tangled in the folds of my skirts. You want to come home with me? I studied him in the glow of the streetlights, one hand casually on the wheel, the other holding mine. Eyes directed out the windshield as he changed lanes. Of course I wanted to go home with him, but I couldn't. I want to, but I can't. He glanced at me. Why not? Huck. Harriet helped me out last night and tonight, not to mention letting him out every day, while I'm at work. I don't want to take advantage of her, and I also don't want Huck to get lonely. He's already pretty depressing being in his crate most of the time. Although starting tomorrow, he's allowed to be out for a little bit longer on a short leash. I smiled at the thought of Huck's marked improvement over the last few days. Then your place it is. I raised an eyebrow at his words. Did I invite you? You were getting around to it. It was strange waking up next to Simon for the second morning in a row, and it scared the hell out of me how much I liked it. In my full-size bed, we had no choice but to cuddle. And I was not a cuddler by nature, or at least I hadn't been before Simon. I tried not to wonder what that said about me and the other guys I've been with before. Regardless, I didn't have time to enjoy the heat of his body surrounding me because in exchange for my Saturday off from the dirty dog, I agreed to go in and do inventory at 9 o'clock today. I tried to extract myself from Simon's hold, but his arm tightened around my stomach. Sleepy babe, try it. His voice was grumpy and rough. I wiggled to get free, but still when I felt his morning wood pressed against the crack of my ass. I have to go to work, and after that, I have to go to my other work. Simon growled, "You work too much." Says the man who left me naked in bed yesterday to go to work on a Saturday. He signed and released me. Fine. When do you have to be there? I rolled out of the bed in 20 minutes. His eyes popped open and he looked at the clock. Shit, you want me to go let Huck out while you get ready? My heart warmed at his question. I was leaving him hard up in the bed and he was offering to help take care of my dog. That would be awesome. I thought for a moment about warning him that Harriet didn't always wear a robe in the mornings, but figured since we heard the sounds of Madame Butterfly coming from her studio until shortly after 2 o'clock, she'd probably sleep until noon. Simon pulled on his slacks and shirt from the night before and left my apartment as I rushed to get ready for work. I threw on my uniform of choice, black skinny jeans, a hot pink bra, and a white wife beater. My hair went up into a messy bun and I put on some eyeliner, mascara, and lip gloss and called it good. I slipped into my chucks and was heading down the spiral staircase when Simon was leading Huck back into the house. A few words and a snuggle with my pup to get him settled, and I was about to leave Harriet's guest room when Simon grabbed something off the bed. He held up Breaking the Code with cryptography, and I froze. Harriet breaking codes lately? Oh shit. I thought I grabbed all my library books yesterday, but apparently not. Shit. I snatched it out of his hand before he could flip it open and see the library barcode. I forced a laugh. Who knows with Harriet? I'll stick it back in the bookshelf. Otherwise, she'll probably never find it. My heart pounded and my hands went clammy as I left the room and shoved the book between a Georgian O'Keeffe biography and the Kama Sutra. I jumped when Simon laughed from behind me. She's got quite an eccentric mix. Trying to pull my shit together, I rubbed my sweaty palms on my jeans, forced a casual shrug, and turned for the door. I really gotta get going. He followed me out, and I had the feeling I just failed some sort of cosmic test. It was an eerie, perfect opening to confess all, but every fiber of my being screamed, "Not yet." Why, girl? I regained my composure as we walked toward the dirty dog. Simon insisted on accompanying me, even though his car was parked in the opposite direction. He even directed me into a little cafe for coffee and quiche because he didn't like the idea of me skipping meals. Accepting my coffee from the barista, I finally felt like I was back on even keel. I looked down at my curves and replied, "I could skip a few and be just fine." His response, not without endangering some of my favorite parts. We walked the rest of the way in companionable silence. His fingers laced through mine. It was like we were a regular couple, living a regular life. Except we weren't. And the close call this morning highlighted once more that we probably never would be. Simon waved to Ev as I ducked inside the store. "I don't know what you did to that man, but honey, he is smitten," Ev said as she waved back. "Yeah, well, I didn't exactly plan this, but it's good, right?" I settled on the stool behind the register and pulled my quiche from the bag. Might as well eat while it was still hot. Yeah, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, and there's no way it could possibly work out, but for now, it's really good. Ev leaned a hip against the display rack and watched me eat. I know we haven't talked about what either of us is running from, but I don't think whatever that is should stop you from trying to make something real with him. My fork halted mid-air at her words and quavered. The bite of quiche landed on the countertop. One thing I had always been able to count on With Ev was no questions. I'd always figured she didn't ask because she didn't want any in return. But she'd just broken the unspoken pact. I thought for a moment before responding. It's not that simple. Charlie, I'm the queen of not that simple. But even I know you can't let your past dictate your future. That's no life. That's what I've been saying this whole time. She didn't understand the magnitude of the difference between our situations because I couldn't tell her. Humorously, I said, if I was just running from a bad relationship, I'd agree with you. But this is a whole different level of fucked up. Ev narrowed her eyes. Letting a man beat on you for 2 years because you think you deserve it is a pretty high level of fucked up, I think. I lost my grip on the plastic fork and it clattered on the counter. It was what I had suspected, but my stomach still twisted to hear her say it out loud. Ev, I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything, but I didn't let that man run me out of my own town. Complicated or simple, some things are worth standing and fighting for. I stared down at the mirror surface of the counter and considered her words. What if I'm juggling too many lies to make it out this in one piece? Does he love you? I thought about it for a beat. I think so. Do you love him? This time I didn't hesitate. Yes. Then there's always hope. Okay, Ev, tell her. Even after a year, I hadn't yet figured out why Khan kept the tattoo parlor open until 10 on Sunday nights. It was almost 9 o'clock and we were dead slow, which was dangerous. Delilah had gone home after her last appointment of the day, so only Khan and I remained. Want to add to your sleeve? Khan asked. That was why it was dangerous for me to be here when it was slow. I started to get the itch. I couldn't say no, especially when I already knew what I wanted next. Fuck it. I was thinking my shoulder blade. I described my idea. Khan grinned. Of course. I assumed the grin was because these tattoo sessions usually ended with him getting laid. That part was not happening. I was pretty sure he knew it, but I needed to be sure we were both on the same page. I'm not fucking you after. His grin faded. I know, Lee. I still don't like him. Why not? Long story. I suppose I need to start getting over it if he's going to keep coming around. That's all you're going to give me? That's it. His smile returned. Are you at least going to take your shirt off so I can get to your whole shoulder? I pulled my tank over my head in response as he readjusted the chair and readied his station. Bra 2. He reached out and snapped the strap against my shoulder. I gave him the evil eye. Work around it. He slid the strap down, gloved up, and got to work. As soon as I heard the familiar buzz, I relaxed into the seat. That's the end of chapter 28. I know, y'all. I don't know how many chapters, but I like the chapters. I think, okay, the sex scenes are cool, tasteful, little raunchy. And I know they just now getting into each other, so I understand. But we are on chapter 27. And I hope they are far and few in between. I hope the story get back to what's at hand, you know, her life, what's going on with her father. I hope it goes into that, you know what I'm saying? Instead of every time or every other chapter or more than every other chapter, there's a sex scene. But I'm just hoping that, yeah, I'm just hoping they get back to the storyline. All right, so that's it. I don't have any definition words, so that's the end of the chapter, and I shall see you in the next chapter, which is chapter 27. Bye.